Next team, the Clippers, the team that Riv
Paul George
dies by.
He loves. I died by the Warriors.
He loves some PG-13. That's his guy. That's his man.
That's my dog, for
Paul
real.
George. 47-25 last year. They lost to the Suns in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals. The first time they've ever been to the WCF. They added Eric Bledsoe, Winslow, Jason Preston, Keon Johnson, and Brandon Boston. Not sure if those young guys are going to get any burn or minutes, but Bledsoe right now, Tyronn Lue said he could be in the starting lineup. He's going to start next to Reggie Jackson. And they lost Pat Bev, Rondo, and Daniel Oturo. Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Zubac. How does that starting lineup sound to you?
Morris not starting. Batum's starting.
Batum starting? Okay. Yeah. So swap out Morris with Batum. How does that starting lineup sound to you?
sounds like the 7th seed.
A playing team?
Yeah.
They're a playing team, Riv? You think you agree with that assessment?
Why you just
because no, that's your team. You're defending them now.
Yeah, I'm all right.
It's not time.
All right.
It's not
you put
my
me
turn.
On the spot.
It's not my turn. I defended the Suns and I defended my team. So now you defend yours. This is your team, the Clippers. These are your guys.
It, bro. I get it.
Steve Ballmer.
Nah,
he'd be mad happy.
It's crazy because we saw a team when Kawhi went down get resilient. Next man up mentality. Ty Lue instilled that heart in his team, and then they went out. They fought with Suns, and they were a DeAndre and Dunk, Paul George choke away from really possibly taking that series. I thought that series was definitely in their hands. But looking at this team this year, they didn't. Aside from Pat Bev, they didn't lose anything. Rondo was a disappointment for them. Daniel Oturu don't play, so you lose a guy who don't play.
You
and
get
another
Bledsoe.
guy. Yeah, getting Bledsoe, and that's the tricky thing for me. I still don't know what Bledsoe can be. I thought they would bring him off the bench. And they would start Reggie Jackson at the 1 and have Paul George play the 2 again. But, having a starting lineup with Reggie Jackson, Bledsoe, Paul George, Batum, probably Ibaka's probably going to start if he's healthy when he gets healthy. That's still 4 guys who can shoot the ball, from mid-range, from the 3-point line. I don't see 7th seed. I see this team can definitely beat Portland. I think this team can be ahead of Dallas. This team can compete with Denver. Yeah, I think this is a team that can definitely do that. This team still has a collective core group that's played with each other, that's fought with each other. So I think the continuity is there. And plus, they still, for the most part, have guys who, like in Luke Kennard and Marcus Morris, who could come off the bench. They can shoot the 3 ball.
Luke Kennard stinks.
He played better in the playoffs.
Hold on.
Played really well in the playoffs.
Hold on. You say that, but then you sit there and glorify guys like THT, Kendrick Nunn. And
All right.
You're a weird guy for that.
You need to
let me finish, but you're a weird guy for that. You're a weird guy for that.
No, you're a weird guy
That's
for
weird, though.
Wait. Let me ask you something.
Give me $64 million.
So you think? So what do you think they're gonna be?
I think they could be if a ceiling for this as high as a 5, and the floor I think is a 17. I think
you don't have them over the Jazz,
Jazz,
Lakers.
Phoenix, Lakers, Suns. I mean
the Warriors.
Suns, Warriors, Phoenix, Jazz. Those are the 4 teams.
Nuggets.
I think they can be higher than Denver.
Think they'd be higher than Denver?
All right. I'll tell
The
you
Western
what,
Conference is going to be
Yeah,
tough, man.
I think this is a 7th seed team, bro.
It's interesting because obviously you don't have Kawhi the whole season, but we saw them in the playoffs without Kawhi.
I'm making my standings right now.
Right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at what's happening.
My stand is already made.
And we saw them obviously have success in the playoffs without Kawhi. So now what are we expecting, obviously? Paul George to have this MVP caliber type season because that's what it's going to take to propel the Clippers to be this top seed that River believes that they will be.
He thinks they can be the 5th, right?
He's saying that's the ceiling, which if he plays at an MVP level, it's not the worst.
So wait, we're talking about the 28 points per game and top 3 in defensive play of the year.
I don't think he needs to play like that.
What he did in the playoffs.
I think if he puts up a cool 25, 8, and 8, and the rest of the team who's good enough to steps up, I don't think he needs to do that.
Riv, I'm with you there because especially from what we've seen from Reggie Jackson, if that could just translate even a little bit into the regular season, this team really could compete. But that being said, I think that sometime during this season, they're going to feel the loss of Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, it's Kawhi Leonard. He's their best offensive player. He's their best defensive player. And regardless of whether he load manages or not, he plays more than enough games that he is more than an essential piece to the Clippers. And they're going to feel it eventually sometime during the season.
No, I disagree. Because when Kawhi's in the lineup, the way they play, you can tell they predicate more to what Kawhi wants. But
I agree.
When Kawhi's out the lineup, you can see a team effort. And I think in a regular season, teams went. Like you look at, no, I'm not saying they're the same team, but you look at the Knicks. They made the playoffs. Team effort. It was a team effort. You know, I think team efforts get you throughout the regular season. You look at Toronto a couple years back during the bubble. It was a team effort, a collective group of guys coming together and winning. And I think this team has built that team, that team effort and built that continuity where they can go in 9, 10 guys and they'll be fine. They trust each other and they believe in themselves enough to be that type of seed. I think people love Portland. Portland's the same team it's going to be. I think they can beat Portland. You know, Dallas, you know, with Luka. Luka's great. You never know. But I think they can be better than those two teams. I think Kawhi is really going to be missed in the playoffs. You know, I think in the regular season, even when Kawhi went out last year, you saw a stretch where Paul George, Marcus Morris, both up there playing. It was 1A, 1B, both of those guys taking turns, having fun. You know, so I think Kawhi Leonard, you know, he's going to be missed. No doubt about it. This is a guy who propels them to the championship. But I think in the regular season, you know, this team has built a solid foundation where I think they'll be okay to at least be a playoff team.
I'm just surprised you didn't even mention Tyronn Lue.
I mentioned Tyronn Lue.
Oh, listen, I just heard everything else you said, but the one thing that's all good, man. I think
the Clippers have a lot of depth, and you talked about Tyronn Lue. I think Terrence Mann is going to take a leap, a most improved player leap.
That's
probably.
why I thought he would start.
You know, I don't think Terrence Mann is probably going to win the award, but I think it could come close. Reggie Jackson, I worry about his health and how healthy he can stay. In Detroit, they were very competitive when he played, but when he didn't play because he was hurt, obviously they dropped off. Reggie Jackson played 82 games in 2018. 2019, he played 31. This past season, he played most of the season. They need that from Reggie. And I agree with you that I don't think Kawhi is that big of a loss because let's just look at the history of Kawhi.
That's so hard to say out loud.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah,
just look at the history, though. Toronto, when they lost Kawhi, they were the second seed in the Eastern Conference the year after.
They just didn't go to the finals.
But yeah, that's
you look at the Spurs. They lost Kawhi. They made the playoffs without Kawhi. You know, historically, when we've seen these teams lose Kawhi, they can still manage.
He's a ceiling raiser.
Because teams are not. They don't live and die by Kawhi. Not like the Rockets with Harden or teams that surround their rosters around LeBron and Cleveland. You know, Harden leaves Houston. They get the second overall pick. LeBron leaves the Cavs. Nobody knows about them. You know, I don't think the teams Kawhi has been on have been predicated on Kawhi. You know, they don't live and die by Kawhi. They can manage without him, but he does take them over the top. But they don't totally crash without him. So I think the Clippers will be competitive.
I just look at this collection of players on this team. It's a bunch of solid players. It's just outside of Paul George. I will even be generous and throw in Reggie Jackson in there. What other player on this team really says, all right, this team could actually be a second-round team in the playoffs?
What you mean?
Look at these guys, and outside of Paul George, and like I said, I will give you Reggie Jackson because he played relatively well in the playoffs. I'm expecting him to have a firm season. What of these list of guys right here, who, as a whole, who's going to get them to the second?
This is a better question. Out of those guys you're reading, which one do you think is not that big of, doesn't make a big impact?
Batum's defense is obviously there, but I need more. Like the scoring here is so limited.
He didn't have to last year.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. The scoring here is limited because you're going to have Paul George tweak every single night for the points to be there. Reggie Jackson's going to have to average 22.
You think?
I think Paul George has to average at minimum 26. Exactly.
You guys think so for real?
I think he could be 24. They'll be fine.
The only thing is do you believe that their defense is going to be one of the top ones in the league?
It'll be a top 10 defense.
Well, then if that's the case, then obviously I guess then I understand your non-concern for personnel.
I'm not concerned because they're the top 3 shooting team in the NBA. That's why I'm not concerned.
I mean, Reggie's going to give you 15.
Yes, that's safe.
Bledsoe's going to give you 13 to 13.
Morris is inconsistent.
Yeah, but Morris is going to average that. I've seen him average 20 on the Knicks.
Morris plays better when Kawhi is not.
And then the lack of bigs, truthfully, like Zubac is not good. Ibaka, his health is questionable.
Zubac is good.
He plays like 20 minutes.
Zubac is not.
I mean, he was a liability in the playoffs.
They played small. That's why.
But they couldn't play him. He was unplayable.
It depends on who.
But teams. That's why teams have to have the balance. Like Clippers have the balance of having big men like Zubac and then Ibaka, but then they can also go extremely small and have Morris or Batum be at the 5.
I agree, and that's where I think Tyronn Lue makes a difference because obviously his adjustments are solid. But if a team's going to play, if the team has the personnel that can space the floor on the Clippers, like a Suns team like we saw, like a Lakers team, obviously with Anthony Davis, they're going to come into some trouble. Zubac's not going to be able to bang with those guys.
Ibaka can, though.
Ibaka, he probably can, but his health is an issue for me.
Yep.
Just last season, though, he was not healthy. But I think, you look at the Clippers, right? Reggie, Bledsoe can give you 13 to 15 a game.
Yeah.
PG's giving you 20 plus.
I agree.
Morris is giving you 13 plus at minimum.
Yeah.
Zubac is at least going to give you 7 to 10. Man, I think now with an increased role is going to give you 10 at least. Batum gives you 10 at least. Ibaka gives you 10 at least. And Luke Kennard gives you 10 at least with the proper minutes. I think all these guys are capable of filling in roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're a top seed in the West. I don't think they're a top 5 seed.
Yeah.
But I think they can be a 6, 7 seed in the West, a play-in team without Kawhi.
I was going to say my floor is the play-in. I don't think that they drop below that for sure because obviously we saw them have success. But I do have my concerns come playoff time.
Well, come playoff time, Kawhi will be here.
Is he going to play?
He's not out for the year.
He's ahead of schedule.
No,
That's what I've
it's
seen,
a
but let's
partial
be
tear.
honest,
It's a partial
they
tear.
Yeah,
gotta-
Kawhi is not out for the
But
year.
they need to. If they rush him back and he gets hurt, the Clippers are going to be punching themselves.
They're not
going
going to
to
rush him back. They said they're not going to rush him back, but he's ahead of schedule.
So if that's the case, he still should not return.
I don't know.
Well, it depends on by when.
It depends
by
on
when.
you have to look at the matchup.
Torn ACL and it happened at the end of this last.
It was partial.
It's partial.
I understand.
It's like what
but-
Dinwiddie had, basically.
But it depends because
And Dinwiddie missed the
partial
whole season, didn't he?
He
'Cause
could
he
have
chose
came. He
to.
could have.
He
Yeah,
chose
he could
to
have came
miss
back for the
the whole
playoffs though.
partial tears are a bit tricky because depending on how surgery goes, you can be out that entire year or it's not a big problem. In Kawhi's case, it wasn't a big problem.
That's fortunate.
So he'll be back. I don't know when it's going to be by, probably after the All-Star break, maybe like 10, 15 games before the playoffs.
See, I didn't know that.
But
That
they'll
changes a lot.
have
That's why
him.
we're here,
bro.
They'll have him for the playoffs.
Okay, all right,
They'll have him for the
interesting.
playoffs.
I think their ceiling is a 5th seed.
Yeah.
I think their floor is like a 7th. I think
I agree.
they're right in that crop with Portland, Denver, and Dallas. They're right there, just playoff teams. They're going to be jockeying for those 5th to 8th spots. It's going to be those 4 just fighting for it. But I think they're right there in that same collective with those teams.
Yeah, for me, I think their ceiling is a 5th seed and their floor is a play-in